Alright guys, here we are in the car. Here are the two connectors for the window switch right here, and then this is going to be for the mirrors. So here's a close-up of what pins are populated. Alright, so as we talked about inside, we were going to install our black wire from our sacrificial connector right above, I guess it would be above the existing ground wire. So let me peel back some of this tape and show you guys what we'll work with. Alright, I've got the tape peeled back just a few inches there. So the next thing I'm going to do, which is probably the easiest way to go about this, is I'm going to remove that black wire from its pin. So removing it from this connector. So to do that, we're going to unlock this bottom lock, grab our depinning tool, and pull it out. Alright, so once you've gotten this wire out, what we're going to do is expose maybe 8 millimeters of wire right around here, so we can splice in our wire from the sacrificial connector. Alright, so once you've gotten a bit of that exposed, excuse the hair here, it's cat hair. Once you've gotten a bit of that exposed, what you're going to want to do is sort of separate the strands just a little bit, like that, so we can stick the other wire through there and solder it together. Alright, so once you've inserted the sacrificial pin from the other connector through that wire, you're going to want to twist it around, make it nice and tight, and let's get to soldering. Alright guys, do be extremely careful when soldering inside a vehicle. Very easy to mess things up, make it fall on the paint or burn something here. Just be careful with it and make sure you know where you're pointing your soldering iron. So there we go. Got a nice little ball of solder there all the way through. It's just some burnt flux, but I guarantee it went all the way through. So now we're good there. Okay, let's put some heat shrink on that so we can protect that connection. Alright, so I got my piece of heat shrink tubing. Again, they are usually pretty long, so I'll have to cut it to size. You want it just large enough to cover the solder joint and, maybe a centimeter each direction. That's just what I use as a rule of thumb. You definitely don't want this whole thing to be heat shrink, because then it gets kind of hard to mess with or bend the wires as needed. So got the right size, let's slip it on. Alright, solder heat shrink is on. Let's make sure we get it centered and light it up. Alright, heat shrink has been heated up. There's a bit of a gap on this side only because the wire is pretty small, but this is the correct size heat shrink because 2 wires are coming out of this side, and that is pretty tight there, so that's what's important. So let's put both of these pins back in the connector. Alright, once you put them back in, you can see they are next to each other, one on top of the other. Go ahead and lock the connector back in place. Just the top part though, because we're not done on the bottom yet. We still need to add our blue and green wires right there where I've marked. So lock the top. And you can see our connection here is nice and solid, flows well with the rest of the wires, and pretty much the same profile as before. So fitment is not going to be an issue at all. I am going to wrap this in tape again, not gray tape, but I'm going to use my preferred tape, which is Tessa tape. I'll be wrapping this, just this little segment here, in that tape. So anytime I make a new connection in a vehicle, I always like to check and make sure my connection was done well. So I have my multimeter turned to resistance. We will attach this somewhere on the chassis, probably like just right here. It's the simplest thing. And we will touch our pins. So let's touch both ground pins to make sure that they are both well connected. So first would be this one here. Perfect. And let's try the next one, which is right above it. There it is. Got continuity on both, so we're good on this connection. While you're here, you could verify that this brown wire there is receiving 12 volts. Just to be sure that your vehicle is the same as mine. So we got that second pin plugged up. Got our ground here on the chassis. Let's start the car real quick. Alright. Car is in accessory mode, 12 volts. Wonderful. Alright, so once you've gotten your black spliced into your existing ground, we can go ahead and add our green and blue. Do not pay attention to the colors I have here, they are backwards. So green is actually on the right and blue is on the left. So we'll take our harness that we made in part 2. Then we'll take this end here with the pinned ends and we will stick it into the stock connector here. Alright, once those are in, again, the colors on the connector are backwards. I marked the connector and made a mistake, but this is the correct way to do it. So black, then blue, then green if you're looking at it from this angle. Now you can lock the connector and we will start routing our wire, our custom harness here, along the factory door harness. Alright, once you've inserted your pins in these locations, again, blue is on the left, green is on the right, if you're looking at the connector from the bottom. These colors are wrong. I mismarked them initially. We'll run it along the stock harness, zip tied it a couple times. Alright, like I said, I'm going to tape this here, so it's going to look really nice on this part here, so you don't see all this heat shrink. And then wrap it, poke it through here, like the factory harness does. And if we peel this goop back, you'll see we're running up along the same harness and up next to the connector, which is right where the mirrors connect. So there's a gap in the goop right here that will prevent this from ever touching that stuff, and you're gonna get this on your hands. It's almost inevitable. This stuff is, God, it's just the worst thing. So there we go, intermediate harness installed. All right, first time out of the garage in months. The most beautiful day we've had up here in Maine in weeks, months. I had to come on out and let her see the sun. Yeah, there's the daily, the old RD1. Just trying to show you guys what the CT modularity cars are. So here's my 09 Acura CSX. It's stupid dirty. It's been sitting in the in this one car garage for as long as I can remember now. It's been months. Moving soon, so we'll soon be filming out of a 2-car garage. Bring you some better videos there. K24 build coming up. Exciting things coming. Second half of the year for sure. So you can see the bumpers off. I was in the middle of painting it when winter happened. I thought I was gonna have enough time, but yeah, can't paint when it's cold. Not a good idea. So I'll probably sand her down again and start all over. Got all the tools, all the fluids. So here she is in her ugliest state in a while. So we're gonna be working on her outside today, installing these mirrors. Interior is completely torn apart too. I mean, she is looking hideous right now. So forgive that. Let's just get on into it. Alright guys, so to remove the OEM mirrors, doesn't matter which Civic you have, all of them are identical. I'm going to remove the door panel and everything that's connected to it, right? So you got to disconnect the lock and the handle. We got, if you have projector lights or puddle lights, OEM, in your door panel, you're going to have to disconnect this. If not, you're just going to have to worry about the window switch and the mirror switch. So once we got that door panel off, just a couple screws and a whole bunch of pop clips all the way around, we can move on to the 3 nuts holding on the base of the mirror. You can see it right there. So there's 2 of them, and that last one is going to be right behind this black plug. Let's see if I can get it out. It's going to be difficult. There we go. So right behind there is the last nut. So let's remove those. Alright guys, mirror's off. Again, take the door panel off, disconnect the mirror from this connector. Whether it's a 3-pin or a 7-pin, it's going to be in the same location. You got a door harness clip right in this hole here that you'll have to push out, and then through these holes here and this hole here, you can access the nuts that are holding in the mirror, and then pull it out. And just make sure that your harness is not wrapped around the rail for the window. Alright guys, sorry for the crappy angle. I promise I'm going to get a tripod soon. So, what I like to do before I install them is line them up and take this off so I can put it on our new harness so it'll clip right into the door, just like OEM. So, let me tape this up here first, and then I'll be able to gauge, because right now it can still move. So take care of that and we'll be golden. Alright, now that we have them lined up as closely as possible and we got tape right there, let's extend these harnesses a bit. Okay. Extend them just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's close, it'll do the job. So my calculation is somewhere around here. Alright, so to take it off, all I'm going to do is grab a knife, look closely in here, lift up that locking tab, and try to push the thing out. Alright, so I find that if you use the knife to pry up on the tab and then give it outward pressure like this, the strap will actually come free a little bit easier. So let's transfer it over. So let's see, kind of see where the wire was pinched. So we'll line it up with this. Get the same S shape. Let's see. Doing it like that. And we could also measure from the connector to the pinch. Okay, let's see. Connector to the pinch, where it was, puts me right here. So right now it's pretty loose, so I can slide it up and down along the harness to make sure I get it perfect. So we'll line up all the connectors, get the wires nice and taut, and slide this down just a hair and make sure that it's twisted the right way here, and lock it down. Now it's going to fit just like OEM. Alright, so before we install them, obviously we're going to clean this up. So what I have is soapy water. It's just dish soap with some water. It's nothing too abrasive. You don't want to use brake clean, even though that's every mechanic's first instinct. I don't want to damage the clear coat under there because the paint is probably going to be pretty perfect since it hasn't seen the light of day, probably, since the factory. So let's give it a shot. Alright, so you're still going to see the lines of the gasket, and it's actually really hard to get that out of there. I can actually feel it with my nails, so you're probably not going to, no matter how hard you rub it. So I think that's good enough. Looks good to me. Other side. Looks good. Let's get these things on. Alright guys, so just a quick insert here before we move on. Be sure to make the wire go around the channel for the window. So you can see it circled in red there. That's where the window track is, or that is the window track rather. And that blue part that I have circled down there is where the wire curves around the back of that window track. So make sure it goes around and not in front of. I can't even begin to explain, all the problems that could happen if you don't do it that way. So do it right, go around the window, and avoid all those problems. Alrighty, there it is installed. You can reuse your OEM nuts for the mirror. And then don't forget to put this cap back. Wonderful. So you can see it plugged right into where the harness was before. It's not tight, it's got plenty of slack. This wiring harness is actually for my courtesy light and what else? Courtesy light and DRL, that's right. Which I'm not going to be using, but I wired it anyway in case I change my mind down the road. So I'll be making a harness that goes from here through the door jamb right here and then to this kick panel area where all the fuses are, so I can wire it in. But anyways, that's what it'll look like all finished up. It doesn't look the prettiest, but it is modular and your door panel won't interfere with it. So the hard part is coming up next though, and the hardest part is the passenger side, and I'll tell you why. Because see this connector here for the other mirror? Yeah, it has to go all the way through the cabin, through that door jamb, and up to the mirror. So we're gonna have to create a long harness that goes from there through the dash to the kick panel area, through this door jamb, and then up into here. Alternatively, you could wire this one to go through the door jamb, but it's not something I want to do, because I'd rather just make a little harness for this door, right? Plug in here, go through here, and then terminate right here. And I'll probably actually do that so that we don't have to go through 2 door jambs for 1 wire, because that's not modular at all. So stay tuned, we'll get this done soon. It's becoming a bigger project than I imagined. Alright, car's on, gauge is on, radio on, which means we have power here. So let's try this one more time. Button in, button out. Wonderful. And again, if something were to happen and for some reason it blows a fuse, there's the fuse. Yeah, you have to take the door panel off, but I think that's a small task to replace a fuse and protect your investment here. So we got both fuses here, 1 and 2. Hey guys, here's a sneak peek of what we're going to be dealing with in part, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 or 5. I've lost count. I didn't expect this to take this long, but you want to do it right, it's going to take some time. Anyways, here's what we're dealing with. Mirror's good to go, taped up. It's got the clip on the harness already. Just got to install it. But this is why this side is the most difficult. So you can see here we have the plug for the mirror, and then we have 2 more plugs down here. Well, if you have the more common Civics, you're not going to have this one. This one's for the door panel puddle light. But this one here, that's just for your lock, lock unlock button on the passenger side, and your mirror up and down for the passenger side. So you don't have a switch to connect to on this side, obviously. So that means we have to route it through here. All right, see if we can get a good angle there. There we go. There's the door jamb grommet. Gotta go all the way through there, underneath the dash, and all the way to the kick panel area. I've decided that running it through that second door jamb is not a smart idea, because you don't want to have one wire go through two door jambs. There's just so much that could go wrong. So we're going to just make it go through one door jamb, and it's going to end up at the kick panel area. And then we'll make a smaller harness that'll plug into the connector for the other mirror, and then it'll go through the door jamb and then just terminate at the kick panel as well. And then we'll make our connection there for the passenger side. So we got our work cut out for us, and I'll try to see if I can get it up within a week, because you know, work, I'm moving, right? I'm gonna get to a bigger garage here, better videos, better lighting. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with, you know, any friends that could use this information, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.
I'm a legend, bitch, I'm swerving in that Acura. Smoking on that pretty rig, I'm spectacular. Losing, that shit ain't in my vernacular.